The city stretched before them, a mosaic of white-walled compounds glimmering under the midday sun. The streets, alive with a mix of honking cars and children's laughter, were crowded with women carrying baskets of brightly colored fruits, vendors calling out prices, and elders seated on benches, eyes observing everything as if the city itself had a memory. Every corner whispered stories. The chatter of neighbors, the laughter of market-goers, the subtle rustle of palm trees swaying against modern buildings. Here, wealth and poverty rubbed shoulders. Skyscrapers gleamed beside crumbling walls, and the aroma of spices mingled with exhaust fumes. The city was both a promise and a warning, a living canvas where dreams could flourish but could also be crushed beneath ambition and social expectation. In this city moved a man, a young African of quiet strength and determination, in his late 20s. He walked briskly along the paved street, the soles of his shoes tapping a steady rhythm against the white pavement. His jacket, modest but neatly pressed, spoke a man trying to carve dignity from life struggles. Yet his eyes betrayed tension. Shadows of worry etched around them. He loved his wife, and he respected the life they were building. But the weight of societal expectations pressed on his shoulders like an invisible yoke. Every glance from neighbors, every subtle whisper about how he should earn more or live differently, gnawed at his pride. "Must I always feel the weight of the world on my back?" he muttered, pausing at a street corner to watch children play. Their laughter was a reminder of innocence he feared he had lost. His thoughts returned to his wife, soft-spoken, loyal, working tirelessly, yet burdened by her own struggles. She moved through the bustling market with grace, wearing a modern dress that hinted at sophistication but also modesty, the subtle patterns embroidered along its hem a nod to her heritage. Her eyes flickered toward each stall with careful attention, counting coins, examining fruits, making purchases with the care of one who knows every penny counts. Though her steps were measured and calm, her mind wandered, old letters, mysterious documents, and dreams that left her waking in wonder and confusion. Dreams of opulent homes, unfamiliar faces, and the feeling of belonging somewhere she had never known. Neighbors watched her from white-painted balconies, their voices soft but keen with curiosity. "Have you heard? That woman. Her family, surely there's more to her story," an elderly man whispered to his companion, nodding subtly toward her. The words were not meant to reach her ears, yet the air around her vibrated with the echoes of questions left unanswered. She smiled politely when villagers nodded her way, but beneath that calm exterior, she wondered what secrets waited to unfold, what fate was quietly steering her life. The man approached her as she paused near a stall, examining a basket of yams. "It's too hot today," he said, voice low but tender. "You must rest more." She looked up, eyes meeting his, a mix of fatigue and affection reflecting back. "I cannot rest when we are barely keeping our heads above water," she replied softly. "But thank you for your concern." He sighed, ruffling his hand through his hair, frustration and love mixing in a silent storm. I want to give you the life you deserve. Sometimes I feel I am failing, and yet I know you are more than I can ever repay." She smiled faintly, unsure whether to comfort him or shield herself from the weight of his guilt. The city around them, white walls, bright sunlight, bustling markets, and quiet corners, seemed to hold its breath. It watched them like an ancestral spirit, observing both the toil of the present and the shadows of secrets that had yet to emerge. In the distance, an envelope caught her eye, sticking slightly out from a pile of discarded papers near the base of a white wall. She bent to pick it up, the crisp seal revealing nothing immediately, but she felt a strange familiarity, a whisper of destiny brushing against her fingertips. A subtle shiver ran down her spine as the wind carried the distant laughter of children, the cries of market vendors, and the soft murmur of the elders. This is odd," she murmured, opening the envelope carefully. Inside, a letter, cryptic yet formal, hinted at a family connection long forgotten, a heritage of wealth and recognition she could hardly comprehend. She glanced at her husband, who had moved closer, curiosity mixed with caution in his eyes. "What is it?" he asked. She hesitated, the weight of unspoken truths heavy between them. I don't know, but it feels important. Something about my past. It may not be as simple as we thought." The man frowned, uncertainty clouding his features. "Be careful," he warned, the pride in his voice veiling a deeper fear. "The city, these streets, the people, they will not wait for us to be ready." As they stood together, the market continued its chaotic symphony. Vibrant produce, colorful fabrics, haggling voices, and whispered secrets mingling with the scent of roasted corn and spices. Shadows of clouds drifted across white walls, restless birds flitted between rooftops, and distant church bells tolled softly, marking the passage of time, the inevitability of change. The couple walked slowly toward their white-walled compound, the husband carrying a silent burden of insecurity, the wife holding an envelope that hinted at a destiny neither fully understood. The city, a blend of modernity and tradition, wealth and struggle, watched silently. It was a place where fortunes could change overnight, where ancestral whispers carried wisdom, and where the hidden truths of the past waited patiently to reveal themselves at the perfect, fateful moment. And so, in this white-walled, bustling city alive with tradition and ambition, the seeds of tension and revelation were planted. Financial struggles, societal pressures, and the whispering hints of a hidden identity intertwined to create a story that promised drama, suspense, and moral lessons yet to unfold. This script expands your subheading and outline into a 5,000-character segment, integrating African storytelling motifs, modern city settings, and emotional depth, while remaining clear, dramatic, and culturally resonant. The city gleamed like a jewel under the midday sun, a modern African metropolis wrapped in white-walled compounds and bustling streets. Markets overflowed with color. Baskets of golden maize, ruby-red tomatoes, and green plantains stacked high, calling out to buyers with the energy of life itself. Children darted between stalls, laughter echoing off the walls of modern buildings, while elders sat in the shade, observing every interaction as though the city carried the memories of their ancestors. Here, tradition and ambition coexisted in uneasy harmony. Neon signs blinked beside wooden doors worn smooth with generations of hands, and the aroma of spices mingled with the scent of car exhaust. Every corner seemed alive with stories. Some whispered in hushed tones behind closed doors. Others shouted in the open air, like the heartbeat of the city itself. Amid this thrumming life walked a man, in his late 20s or early 30s, his posture straight, but his shoulders heavy with unspoken burdens. His jacket, plain yet neatly pressed, marked him as a man striving for dignity against the weight of expectation. He paused, glancing at the white walls of a compound where a wedding had taken place weeks ago, and the memory of his own limited resources pressed against his chest like a stone. He loved his wife deeply, yet pride and insecurity gnawed at him. Society's eyes were ever watchful, judgment lurking in every glance, every whispered opinion about what a man of ambition ought to provide. "Why does it feel like the world demands more than I can give?" he murmured under his breath, the words swallowed by the bustle of the city. He watched vendors haggle fiercely, the sharpness of their voices blending with the clatter of car horns and children's laughter. The city was alive, relentless, demanding, yet it offered opportunity, if only one dared to grasp it. His wife moved among the crowd with grace, her modern dress flowing like the rhythm of the river, hints of traditional embroidery along the hem, a silent acknowledgement of heritage. Her eyes darted to each stall, counting coins with careful precision, her hands selecting the ripest fruits, the freshest vegetables. Though she appeared calm, her mind raced. Old letters, forgotten documents, dreams that carried her to places she had never seen, whispers of the past that did not belong solely to her imagination. Dreams of wealth, of family faces she did not recognize but somehow felt she should, haunted her nights, leaving her heart heavy with questions. "Be careful with the yams," the man said, stepping closer. "You don't need to carry all this burden yourself." His voice was low, a mix of affection and concern. "I must," she replied softly, placing the yams carefully into a basket. "If I do not, who will? We survive together, but sometimes I feel the weight alone." He sighed, hands brushing over his face. "I wish I could change everything for us. But I feel trapped between what I can earn, what society expects, and what our families think is right." His eyes, dark and intense, reflected frustration, but also the quiet ache of love. Nearby, an elderly neighbor whispered to another, nodding subtly toward her, "That woman, there is something about her." Her family, long gone. Perhaps she carries secrets we cannot see. She smiled politely, hiding the shiver that ran down her spine. The city seemed to lean in closer, listening. Its white walls reflected the sun. Its alleys whispered secrets, and even the market stalls seemed to pause, aware of the invisible thread connecting her past to present. A letter slipped from a pile of papers at her feet. She bent to pick it up, its crisp edges unusual amidst the worn papers of the street. The seal bore a mark she did not recognize, yet her fingers tingled as though the envelope carried her destiny. She opened it slowly. Inside, the handwriting was elegant, deliberate, an invitation to discover a family she had never known, a wealth that had always belonged to her, and a recognition that could change her life forever. The man stepped closer, glancing at the letter with a frown. "What is it?" he asked, cautious yet curious. She hesitated, the weight of revelation pressing against her chest. I don't know fully yet, but it feels important. Someone, somewhere, has been waiting for me. Something about my past, my family." Her voice trailed off, uncertainty and awe mixing in her eyes. He nodded slowly, uncertainty and fear flickering across his features. "The city does not wait. If this is true, it will move faster than we expect. Be careful." As they walked toward their white-walled home, the market noise faded into background. The city's heartbeat remained, but a quiet tension hung in the air. Shadows of clouds drifted across rooftops, birds flitted restlessly between the streets, and the distant toll of a church bell marked time's inexorable march. The man's shoulders bore the invisible weight of insecurity, while the woman carried the fragile hope of discovery and destiny. The city itself, a modern landscape alive with tradition, opportunity, and scrutiny, seemed to acknowledge the threads of fate weaving between them. Financial hardship, societal pressure, and the hints of hidden heritage intertwined, forming a tapestry of suspense, moral questioning, and emotional depth. Each step they took resonated with the silent wisdom of ancestors, the unspoken rules of community, and the promise that truth, when revealed, would demand reckoning, justice, and perhaps redemption. Thus, in the heart of the city, between white walls and bustling markets, the story of ambition, love, hidden lineage, and societal expectation began to unfold, its full drama yet to be revealed, carrying with it the essence of African tales, suspense, morality, and the enduring strength of family and destiny. The city sprawled beneath a sunlit sky, a labyrinth of white-walled compounds that rose like quiet sentinels against the horizon. Between these walls, the pulse of life never ceased. Scooters weaved through narrow streets, merchants shouted their wares, and the aroma of roasted corn mingled with the scent of fresh paint on the new buildings. Yet within this modern African city, the echoes of tradition lingered, invisible yet palpable. Courtyards dotted with clay pots and carved wooden stools stood alongside steel and glass facades, and elders in patterned robes haggled with younger men in tailored suits, negotiating not only prices but respect and reputation. In the midst of this vivid tapestry walked the woman. She was young, her skin a warm shade of ebony, glowing in the afternoon sun. Her dress was modern, a soft cotton tunic paired with tailored pants, its fabric shifting gracefully as she walked. Yet along the hem, delicate embroidery whispered of her roots. Tiny golden threads forming ancestral symbols, a secret language only her heart truly understood. Her eyes moved deliberately across the bustling marketplace, assessing, counting, calculating, not merely for survival, but to shield herself from the judgment that hovered like shadows along the alleys and corners. Each coin she carried was a battle won against circumstance, each careful step a testament to resilience. She paused a stall, the vendor offering ripe mangoes. She chose the finest, her hands moving with practiced care. Behind her smile, there was determination, a quiet insistence that she would endure, that she would honor the dignity she carried silently in her posture. Her husband, a man whose pride often outweighed his patience, followed closely, adjusting his tie nervously. His sharp eyes scanned the crowd, wary of disapproving glances. Though he loved her fiercely, his love was tethered by insecurities. The relentless pressure provided to succeed, to uphold a social expectation that sometimes felt cruel and unrelenting. "Don't spend too much," he murmured, his voice low yet tense. "We need to save for next week's rent." She looked at him, a soft smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "I know, my love. But a little care today will save us grief tomorrow. Her words were gentle, imbued with the wisdom that came not only from intelligence, but from hardship endured. She had learned patience in the quiet corners of the city, in moments where the roar of traffic and market cries faded, leaving only the sound of her own heartbeat as a guide. Yet the city held more than commerce and daily survival. It held secrets. On a weathered bench near the fountain, a folded paper waited. She had seen it before, tucked among bills and notes, its edges worn yet still strong. The paper bore a mark she could not yet decipher, a mark that whispered a life she had never lived but somehow belonged to. Occasionally, when sleep drew her into dreams, she found herself in vast rooms lined with gold, chandeliers casting reflections like captured sunlight, and faces smiling down at her, familiar yet distant. These dreams unsettled her, making her pulse quicken and her hands tremble as she awoke to the modest apartment she shared with her husband. "Are you listening?" he asked, glancing at her with concern. "You seem elsewhere." She shook her head, forcing her attention back to market. "Just thinking," she said, her voice steady despite the racing of her heart, "about how far we've come and how much further we must go." Around them, the city seemed to notice. Birds fluttered restlessly above the rooftops. Pigeons scattering as a taxi skidded around the corner. Clouds gathered on the horizon, the first hints of rain threatening to wash the streets clean and leave behind traces of mud and memory. Even the elders sitting in the shade seemed to lean closer, their eyes sharp, noting the young woman's careful movements, the subtle signs of grace and strength that seemed to set her apart. A neighbor, an older woman who sold beaded jewelry from a wooden cart, leaned to whisper to another, "That girl, she carries something within her. I do not know what, but it is not ordinary." The young woman overheard the whisper, though she did not respond. She simply nodded politely, her mind racing with questions that had no answers. Who had left this life for her to find? What family had vanished before she could know them? And what destiny waited, veiled behind the ordinary, until it was ready to reveal itself? Her husband walked beside her, unaware of the depth of her thoughts. He was consumed by the weight of their shared struggle, by the shame he felt at not being able to provide all that society deemed necessary for a man of his standing. Pride clashed with love, ambition with fear, leaving him unsettled, eyes darting from street to stall, as though the city might demand a reckoning at any moment. As they approached the quiet corner of the market, the wind rustled papers stacked carelessly near a fruit stand. One letter tumbled to the ground, its seal catching the light. The young woman's fingers itched to pick it up, and as she did, her heartbeat quickened. The seal bore an emblem she had never seen, a mark that spoke of lineage, wealth, and a family she had never known. She held it close, almost reverently, sensing the pulse of destiny throbbing through the thin parchment. Her husband glanced at the envelope, brows furrowing. "What is it?" I don't know yet," she admitted, her voice a whisper, caught between fear and anticipation. "But it feels important. Someone, somewhere has been waiting for me." The market seemed to pause, the chatter fading into a hush as if the city itself held its breath. Birds circled overhead, restless, their wings slicing through the sunlight. Clouds darkened, a shadow moving across the streets, and even the vendors seemed momentarily still, as if aware that a change had begun, a shift in fate that could not be ignored. The young woman looked into her husband's eyes, seeking reassurance, yet finding only the reflection of his own unease. The weight of the city, of societal expectation, of hidden heritage, and the relentless march of time pressed upon them both. The city's white walls gleamed, indifferent yet watchful, holding their stories within the layers of paint and plaster, echoing with the laughter, sorrow, and secrets of countless generations. "Whatever this is," he said quietly, "we face it together, but be careful. If this is true, it will change everything." She nodded, folding the letter carefully and tucking it close to her heart. "I will," she promised, "and I will not forget who I am or where I come from." In that moment, the modern African city stood as both stage and witness. White-walled compounds reflecting sunlight, bustling streets alive with commerce and whispers, and quiet corners where destiny and heritage met. Between ambition and tradition, Between love and pride, the threads of fate were weaving a tapestry of suspense, morality, and discovery. The young woman's hidden strength, the man's conflicted heart, and the city's watchful presence converged, signaling the beginning of a story that would test loyalty, reveal secrets, and challenge the very notion of family and identity. Every coin counted, every step measured, every glance cast. These small acts carried the weight of destiny. The city itself seemed to hum in anticipation, as if the ancestors whispered through the rustling leaves of trees lining the streets, through the arches of compounds, and the bustling hum of the market, urging patience, vigilance, and courage. And so, within the city of contrasts, white walls gleaming in the sun, markets alive with color, shadows hiding whispered secrets, the young woman moved with quiet dignity, unaware that the path before her would soon lead to wealth, recognition, and the unraveling of truths long buried, setting in motion events that would test the limits of love, loyalty, and the resilience of the human spirit. The city stretched endlessly beneath the morning sun, white-walled compounds gleaming with the promise of prosperity, while narrow alleys hinted at the hardships hidden in shadow. Streets teemed with life, vendors shouting their wares, the rhythmic clatter of footsteps against cobblestones, and the chatter of neighbors trading news, warnings, and gossip. Yet the city was a mirror of contrasts. Sleek cars and polished shoes in one corner, while the aroma of roasted maize and the worn leather street carts reminded the observer of humble beginnings and persistent struggle. Amid this rhythm of life, the city watched silently as destinies unfolded, much like the elders of old who witnessed the cycles of joy and misfortune in their villages. Through the bustling streets walked a man in his late 20s, the weight of ambition pressed heavily on his shoulders. His tailored shirt, modest yet crisp, was carefully chosen to reflect both pride and effort, but his eyes betrayed the constant calculation of survival. Every glance he cast at the passing faces, every gesture of acknowledgement to the elders seated along the shaded courtyards, revealed a man attuned to expectation, society's, his family's, and his own. His mind churned with worry, bills unpaid, opportunities missed, the tension of pride clashing against necessity. Yet beneath the anxiety, there was love, deep, quiet, and steadfast, for the woman who walked beside him, her presence a balm to his restless spirit. She was young, radiant, and striking, not only for her beauty but for the dignity she carried in her posture and steps. Her clothing spoke of the modern city, tailored fabrics flowing effortlessly around her, but the subtle embroidery along her hem spoke of her roots, of stories carried silently from generation to generation. Her hands, though gentle, bore the invisible marks of labor and endurance. Her eyes, soft and intelligent, missed little in the street around them. Every smile she offered to the street vendors, every nod to a neighbor, was measured, deliberate, and heartfelt. She had learned the language of survival, where kindness was currency, patience a shield, and loyalty an act of courage. Yet even as she moved through the city, shadows of hidden truth lingered. On her wrist, she touched a worn string bracelet, an heirloom, perhaps left by someone she never knew, infused with the weight of stories untold. In the pocket of her tunic lay an old, folded birth certificate, its edges brittle but the ink stubborn against time. There was also a letter, cryptic and unfinished, discovered months ago, hidden behind her dresser, its words hinting at wealth, status, and a family she could not yet recognize. Occasionally, she awoke from dreams of golden halls, chandeliers sparkling like captured sunlight, and faces that smiled with familiarity but remained distant. These dreams were both torment and comfort, a glimpse of what could be, a whisper of what was hidden. "Are you thinking of the letter again?" her husband asked, voice low yet edged with tension. He had noticed the way her eyes sometimes lingered on the edges of old furniture, or the way she paused at the sound of certain names whispered in the market. His pride battled curiosity, fearful of what might emerge from her past. She shook her head lightly, forcing a smile. "No, just remembering a dream," she replied softly, tucking the folded paper closer to her chest. The streets seemed to lean in, as though the city itself knew of the secrets she carried. Elderly women at the corner stall exchanged glances over their beads, their whispers drifting through the humid air. She is not ordinary. See the way she moves, the way her hands carry themselves? Something is waiting for her. Their words, soft yet deliberate, floated like incense, touching her heart even as she pretended not to hear. Children ran past, their laughter echoing like bells in the narrow alleyways. Yet even their play seemed to pause for a moment as she walked by. A cat slinked along the white walls of the compound, eyes gleaming, tail flicking in anticipation, while a crow alighted on a rooftop, its caw sharp and singular, breaking the morning hum. Symbols all, if one knew how to read them. Her husband noticed the subtle changes in the air, a slight chill in the sunlight, the restless flutter of birds above, the hush that occasionally fell over the market. He knew the city was more than walls and asphalt. It was a living witness, and it watched now, as it had watched generations before, waiting for revelations and reckonings. "Someday," she whispered, almost to herself, "someone will tell me who I truly am." Her husband frowned, unease wrinkling his brow. "Do you believe that, or do you fear it?" She looked up, eyes steady, a mixture of courage and longing. "I do not fear the truth. I only wonder why it took so long to reach me." Nearby, a vendor rearranged crates of tomatoes and yams, glancing briefly toward the young woman, and whispering to a neighbor, "Do you see her? She carries herself like royalty, yet she does not know it. There is gold in her past. Mark my words." The city responded. Clouds gathered gently in the distance, shadows stretching across whitewashed walls, a prelude to rain and renewal. Animals shifted in uneasy patterns. A goat bleated softly, a dog's ears perked, and even the pigeons on a rooftop scattered in restless flight. The world was signaling change, subtly, with quiet insistence. The woman folded the birth certificate and read her carefully, keeping them hidden yet close to her heart. "Patience," she muttered. "The time will come." Her husband, unaware of the full weight of what she carried, took her hand, gripping it firmly. "Whatever comes," he said, voice resolute though trembling with uncertainty, "we face it together." She nodded, drawing strength from his words while silently acknowledging that some truths could not be shared. Not yet. The city's rhythm continued around them. Shouts of merchants, the laughter of children, the metallic clang of construction. But within their small sphere, destiny had begun to stir, threads of hidden heritage weaving into the lives of the two who moved with caution, love, and unknowable potential. From distant corners of the city, whispered rumors floated, neighbors hinting at a lost inheritance, at a family hidden behind years of secrecy, at fortunes waiting to be recognized. And she, carrying her hidden strength like a quiet flame, continued to the marketplace, unaware of the magnitude of change that awaited her, yet moving with the grace and resilience of one born to endure and to rise. Every interaction, the merchant's bow, the child's playful tug, the neighbor's glance, became a brushstroke on the canvas of her unfolding life. Each shadow cast by the white walls, each flicker of sun on the compound gates, each restless bird in flight was a reminder. She was being watched, guided, and prepared for a destiny long whispered in the city's secret corridors. And so the woman moved on, strong and unbowed, the city a silent witness to her untold story, her hidden identity waiting patiently in the folds of letters, dreams, and the echoes of ancestral whispers that shaped every step she took. The market, the white walls, and the bustling streets would all remember her, as would the generations to come, for in her footsteps lay the promise of revelation, justice, and fulfillment of a destiny that could no longer be denied. The city seemed to breathe with life and tension as dusk began to fall. White-walled compounds reflected the fading sunlight, while narrow alleyways and vibrant markets hummed with the rhythm of the day winding down. Traders called out their final offers. Children played along the cobblestone paths, and elders leaned on wooden posts, exchanging knowing glances and quiet warnings. Among the crowd, the man walked with shoulders slightly hunched, each step heavy with worry. His tailored shirt, neat but showing faint creases, spoke of effort and pride, yet his eyes darted anxiously, calculating expenses and missed opportunities. He had left the village years ago with dreams burning in his chest, ambitions sharpened by hardship, and a determination to forward a life that would lift him and his family above constraints of their surroundings. He had learned city ways quickly, how to negotiate, how to appear confident even when funds were tight, how to bow politely to tradition while racing toward modern success. But now, in this moment, he felt trapped between the life he had built and the expectations pressing down from all sides. His wife walked beside him, graceful, resilient, carrying herself as though the burdens of the world were mere feathers upon her shoulders. Her modern dress, a flowing emerald tunic paired with dark slacks, spoke of urban elegance, yet subtle embroidery along her collar hinted at the traditions she carried in her blood. She noticed a tension in her husband's jaw, the tightness of his grip on her hand, and the way his eyes occasionally flicked toward the marketplace, as if he were seeking solutions in the air itself. "Why do you always look so worried?" she asked, voice soft but edged with concern. "I worry for us," he replied sharply, though regret edged his tone. "You know our situation. We cannot live on dreams alone. The rent is due, the children's school fees are not small, and our families, they do not wait for men to grow their pride before they demand respect." She nodded, understanding, but her eyes lingered on the folds of the city, the subtle whispers that seemed to rise from the streets themselves. The letter she had discovered months ago, the brittle birth certificate tucked into the folds of her dress, and the recurring dreams of golden halls and faces she had never met haunted her quietly. She wondered how long the city would let her hide this secret, and whether her husband's pride would blind him long enough for destiny to intervene. "I know you carry the weight of our responsibilities," she said, voice calm yet firm. "But perhaps your pride sometimes blinds you from what is right before your eyes." He turned sharply, frustration furrowing his brow. "What do you mean?" She hesitated. She could not yet tell him about the clues of her heritage, not while his insecurity made him so ready to dismiss the impossible. Sometimes we look for solutions in the wrong places. Sometimes we fail to see blessings when they appear. The market stalls cast long shadows over their path. Vendors shouted their final bargains, and neighbors whispered as they watched the couple pass. The city itself seemed to lean in, holding its breath, as if aware that a revelation was coming, one that could either heal or fracture what little stability remained in their lives. He clenched his fists, pulling slightly ahead. "I do not need lessons. I need results. We cannot wait for miracles. I provide with sweat, with effort. I demand respect from you and from the world." His voice cracked, a mixture of frustration and fear, and she felt the tension deepen like storm clouds gathering overhead. She kept her gaze steady, drawing strength from the subtle resilience woven into her being. "And yet, sometimes the world's respect is not the same as fate's blessing," she murmured. Her words seemed to float above them, almost lost in the hum of the city, yet they carried a weight he could not yet understand. The streets began to empty as dusk settled in. A dog barked in the distance, birds flitted restlessly above the white walls, and the faint scent of evening rains teased the air. All around, the city bore witness to their struggle, wealth and poverty intertwined, tradition pressing against ambition, and secrets hidden in plain sight. "I cannot wait for blessings that may never come," he said finally, voice softer but no less strained. "I am responsible. Our families, they will judge me if I fail." She reached for his hand, holding it with gentle persistence. "You are responsible, yes, but responsibility does not always mean control. There are paths we cannot see, even when we walk together. Perhaps it is not your duty to control everything." He looked at her then, really looked, and saw not only the burden of poverty and expectation, but also the glimmer of something else, something noble and steadfast that he had not noticed in his own pride. Her loyalty, her intelligence, her quiet endurance. They were gifts, even if it failed to recognize them. Yet the tension remained, unspoken and potent, threading through their steps like the weaving of a Kent cloth, binding and constricting, holding stories of past struggles and future possibilities. The neighbors whispered as they passed. "See how they walk together, yet their hearts do not meet. Something waits for her, something that will change everything." As they reached the edge of the market, she paused. The evening breeze stirred the letter hidden in her pocket, lifting it ever so slightly. She imagined the life it hinted at, grand halls, families she had never known, wealth that could liberate her. But she kept the secret, knowing that timing in the city, as in life, was everything. Her husband looked at her, sensing the unspoken, sensing the distance that had crept into their shared path. "Tell me," he said finally, almost a whisper, "is there something you're hiding?" She shook her head gently, a small, knowing smile tugging at her lips. "Not hiding, only waiting." some truths. They must find the right moment. The city watched in silence as the couple moved on, white walls gleaming under the last light of day, alleys fading into shadows, markets quieting for the night. Symbols lingered everywhere. The restless animals, the shifting clouds, the whispers of neighbors, and the faint flutter of the letter against her side. All were signs of change, of revelations poised just beyond reach, and of the fragile balance between pride, loyalty, and destiny. For in this city of contrasts, where modern ambition rubbed against the wisdom of tradition, and where every whisper held a story, their lives were about to collide with truth neither could yet fully grasp. And the tension that now pressed upon them, the financial strain, the societal expectation, the silent pride and quiet resilience, was only the beginning. The city would remember this night. The market would tell its story and murmur for years to come, and their hearts, though heavy with worry, were poised on a precipice of revelation that would shake both the foundation of their marriage and the hidden world waiting to reveal itself. The city sprawled beneath the evening sun, a landscape of white-walled compounds interlaced with dusty streets and bustling marketplaces. The aroma of roasted maize and spices mingled with the sharp tang of motor oil and asphalt. Children's laughter clashed with the merchants' calls, creating a symphony of life and unrest. Here, tradition met ambition, where elders in colorful robes whispered old wisdom beside modern cafes, and where the air itself seemed to carry the weight of unspoken stories. He walked fast, yet with careful attention to his steps, as if the ground beneath him might judge his worth. In his late 20s, his muscles were firm from years of labor, his face etched with both pride and fatigue. Every crease told a story of struggle, each line carved by necessity, the pursuit of better days, and the constant balancing act between ambition and duty. He had left the village with dreams glowing brighter than the city lights, believing that sweat and perseverance could lift him and his family above misfortune. Yet now, the city pressed upon him, its noise and expectation heavy, and the same hands that built a small life here trembled with the burden of responsibilities he could not escape. Beside him, she moved with quiet grace, her step steady though her heart was heavy. Her modern attire, a deep indigo blouse tucked into soft tan trousers, spoke of urban sophistication, yet embroidered lines traced patterns she had learned from her mother and grandmother, subtle nods to the roots she had yet to fully understand. She carried the weight of poverty, societal judgment, and unfulfilled ambition with dignity, each step a testament to resilience. Though unknown to her husband, the secrets of her birth hummed quietly beneath her skin, like a drumbeat only she could hear, echoing a wealth and family that lay hidden in another life. "The rent will be due soon," he said abruptly, the words slicing through the market's chatter. His voice was firm but edged with worry. "The children's fees, the bills. If I cannot provide, if I cannot make this work," he trailed off, frustration lining his features. She looked up, meeting his gaze. "I know you carry so much, but we are together. Whatever comes, we face it as one. Do not let fear rule your hands." He shook his head, voice tight. "It is not fear, it is reality. Reality does not bend for prayers or hope. You know how the city judges us, how society measures success by wealth. We cannot hide behind dreams any longer." Her heart ached at his words. She wanted to reveal the truth, the birth certificate hidden beneath her blouse, the letter that whispered of a past rich in fortune and power. Yet she knew that his pride and insecurity would make him blind, that he would see her words as challenge rather than guidance. Instead, she chose silence, letting her eyes hold the story her lips could not yet tell. A woman passed by, carrying a basket of yams, and whispered under her breath, "She is not like the rest. The blood in her veins carries gold, though no one knows." Others nodded subtly, their eyes flicking toward the couple. The city's whispers were small but potent, echoing in corners and alleys, building tension in a world where survival and heritage collided. "I am trying. I am working," he continued, his voice almost a plea now. "Every day I push against the world, and yet we are still behind. I cannot see any path except the one I carve myself." She reached for his hand, gentle but firm. "And sometimes the path we carve is not the only one. Sometimes destiny walks beside us, unseen until the moment is right." He turned sharply, frustration and fatigue warring in his expression. "Destiny? There is no destiny for those who do not fight, only work, sacrifice, and calculation. His eyes softened briefly, then hardened again. I cannot risk anything else. Our families, our honor, everything depends on our strength. The city seemed to lean closer, its white walls reflecting the amber light of dusk, while shadows lengthened along the streets. In quiet corners, whispers continued, subtle and knowing. Children chased one another past the edges of open-air markets, their laughter masking the tension that vibrated in the air like the hum of an unseen drum. Animals stirred nervously, birds taking flight from roofs, as though sensing the unspoken conflict between pride, survival, and hidden heritage. Perhaps strength is not only in sacrifice, she murmured, her voice low, almost drowned by the city's cacophony. Sometimes it is in recognizing blessings when they appear. Sometimes it is in knowing that what we cannot see today may reveal itself tomorrow. He glanced at her, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. His pride war with instinct. He wanted to reject her words, yet he could not ignore the subtle truth within them, her calm, steadfast demeanor, the resilience in her gaze. It was a quiet strength that had carried them this far, unseen but present. Yet the tension between them remained. It hung in the air, tangible as the smoke rising from the market fires. The city, with all its noise and life, seemed to pause around them, as if bearing witness to the delicate balance between human pride and divine timing. Financial strain pressed like a weight upon his chest. Societal expectation whispered in every glance from neighbors and market vendors, and the secret of heritage shimmered just beneath the surface, a promise and a threat all at once. As night fell, the streets dimmed, lanterns flickering to life, casting a golden glow over the white compounds. The air smelled of rain yet to fall, of food, of sweat, of life moving relentlessly forward. He felt the pressure of every expectation pressing upon him, yet could not deny the sense that something beyond his understanding waited, an unseen hand ready to shift the course of their lives. I cannot fail us, he admitted finally, voice heavy with both pride and desperation. You will not, she said softly. And yet, sometimes the world teaches lessons we cannot learn alone. Sometimes the story has more pages than we imagine, and every chapter brings a truth we are not ready to face. He shook his head, conflicted, as the market emptied around them. The whispers of the city, the shadows of the alleys, the restless birds, and the faint promise of rain all spoke a change. And beneath it all, hidden within her calm exterior, she carried a secret that would soon demand acknowledgement, a heritage both golden and dangerous, waiting for the right moment to alter everything they thought they knew. The couple moved on, their hands brushing, their hearts heavy with unspoken tension, the city watching silently as they navigated the treacherous path between survival, expectation, and destiny. Each step echoed in the marketplace, each glance spoke volumes, and the night seemed to hum with the weight of stories yet to be told, of fortunes hidden, of pride challenged, and of a revelation that would shift the balance of their lives forever.